I look for I look for platforms in the first instance, because where there is a serious enough network or a platform, then the ability, because of what the technology is doing, the ability to then use that platform to disrupt other kinds of businesses is significant. I mentioned before the Pandora, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc. before. So I wouldn't invest in Pandora because it's not a sufficiently large network, but I would invest in Apple, and I do invest in Google. We bought Amazon 2 years ago. It's doubled, so there's that's good. So it's good. So where there's a large enough platform to begin with, and there are sufficient adjacencies in the platform where they can grow into different business lines. For example, the car is one that Google's growing into and Apple's growing into, and the Chinese companies are as well. Those things are attractive. And then we look at cash flows and multiples. We're not obsessed about buying multiples of 5 or 10 or 15. We don't. Things are expensive out there in disruption land for very, very good reasons. I mean, the difference between 2000 and now, when we valued companies on user growth, is almost all of these companies, and I mean every single one, are sitting on massive cash piles because they haven't, they're not geared, they're not burning cash, as it were, to get themselves funded. They are sitting on massive cash piles,
and they're not paying dividends either.
And they're not paying. Well, they could.
By and large,
But so they are very well-funded businesses with adjacencies, with great networks, and that's kind of what I'm looking for now.
Guys?
We look for 5 attributes in companies. So in our first 15 months of the new fund, we literally saw 1,150 companies. We did deep dive, sort of medium dive with 430, 130 deep dives, 25 term sheets, 13 investments. So we look for 5 attributes. We look for outstanding talent, it's outstanding management. We try to codify what that actually means.
Yep.
We look for very, very strong product market fit. Do people care about the product enough? Do enough people care about the product enough? Because sometimes a couple do, not many do. We look for very strong monetization, this unit economics thing, and stickiness and cohort analysis and churn. We look for very strong differentiation. Why will this company succeed in the global sphere of all these companies attacking that? And it can't be just because they're going to try harder. It's got to be something fundamental about their offering, their platform, their technology, their market access, their distribution. And then we try and understand what the cash burn profile will look like. Because we don't like businesses that plan to burn cash for 4 years. That's a bit scary. Well, we understand you're going to have this curve, but it's got to be, if your unit economics are right, this curve will do this. If it's going to do this forever, it's not much fun. So.
Elaine? Exactly the same. We have a very similar focus, and therefore we have the same sorts of things that we look for. The only thing I would add to your original question about what are things that are red flags for us, the things that we won't invest in. Anything that's outside of what Daniel just articulated are certainly no-goes for us. But the things that we also want to make sure that are part of the investment thesis is that the management team or the founders or the people who are very critical to the execution of that business over time are incentivised in the same way that we are. So we are hugely turned off by huge salaries. We are hugely turned off by people not having strong equity in the business and therefore really incentivised and aligned with us to grow the business and its value. So we often do see scenarios where those two things are a bit out of whack. And even if we love the business and we think the unit economics are great and the growth story makes a lot of sense, we won't invest for that reason. And the other is that we need to see real evidence of grit and hustle, because where we have been caught previously is where they've done a very good job of getting a business from where they started to where it is now, but it's actually been a pretty easy ride. And there's no real validation or understanding that they really got the grit and hustle to do stuff, to do the right thing when things turn a little bit pear-shaped. So we try and, screen for that too, although it's more vague and difficult to codify.
Daniel,
one question which if we ask this question, if they give the wrong answer, we literally run from the room screaming. Is that we ask the question of, who are your competitors? And if they say nobody, we run.
Right. Everyone's got a competitor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how many people who come and say, you know, that nobody in the planet's doing anything in this space. Really?